Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Patricia Massey, the Digital and Technology Manager at BEAMA and a nima, very proud nima ambassador. My background is in the electrotechnical sector, so I wear a few different hats. Digital standards specialist, possibly debatable, electrotechnical enthusiast, and yes, a bit of a digitisation evangelist. It's great to see so many of you here today, whether you're tuning in live or catching up later. I hope you're ready for an engaging and insightful session. This morning, we'll be exploring a big question: the Information Management Initiative. What has it got to do with manufacturing? As we know, the IMI, that I'll refer to it as, is shaping to be a game changer for information management, especially in manufacturing, construction, and across the wider supply chain. And it's no surprise that there's a lot to unpack when it comes to potential impact on manufacturing processes, compliance, and of course, sustainability. Format-wise, we're keeping things fairly informal here. So I'll be moderating, but it's our aim to create a relaxed and conversational atmosphere. I'm joined by some fantastic panellists from across the industry, each bringing their own unique perspectives and expertise on today's topic. So here's how it will work. We'll go through some structured questions, but please do feel free to pop your questions into the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on them throughout the session. If we run out of time, which I have a feeling that we might, please don't worry. We can continue this conversation in the IMI networking area later today and this afternoon. So thank you all for being here today and for contributing to this important discussion. And I think we shall dive right in. Panel, wonderful panel. Introduce yourself with a slight tag-on personal opening question, which is, what does improved information management mean to you? And I'll start with Jamie.
Thanks, Trish. So daytime job is Global Building Information Modelling Manager at Xylem, which is a large technology provider. Within that portfolio of technology services, there's a lot of product manufacturers. So I'm heavily interested in how we can get data out of our back-end systems and present it to customers, people that might want to buy our products, and help them make better informed and safer decisions. So within all of this space, my interests are how we can present information at the right time, at the right level, so people can make better informed and safer decisions from it. And I think there's quite a few stakeholders involved in this, and that's the sort of thing that I'd like to discuss on this panel.
Super. Thank you, Jamie. And Golnaz?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm Golnaz Ighany. I'm a Director of Sustainability at BDP, which is an international multidisciplinary practice building design partnership of architects, engineers, and urbanism. My role is pushing the agenda of sustainable design and agenda of whole life net zero carbon within our practice and our projects. Going back to your question, Patricia, about what does improved information management mean for me, it's about having that key several benefits that directly impact the quality, efficiency, and success of delivering a good and sustainable outcome. For me, the definition can be connected to the enablers of circular economy, all those technologies that support us to achieve a better outcome, better decision making, increasing efficiency and tracking of the carbon and material, and improve the collaboration between all the parties and stakeholders. And looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you, Golnaz. Me too. Sustainability, one of the big challenges out there. Certainly when it comes to standards, I'm feeling that pain. So, Joe, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe give your take on what improved information management means to you?
Thanks, Trish. Yes, I'm Jill Jolly. I am the Director for Environment and Innovation at Ofwat. I joined Ofwat in August, so quite recent. Prior to that, I was at the Infrastructure and Projects Authority in Cabinet Office. who oversee the improvement of all of government major project delivery. But prior to that, really sort of 20 years in infrastructure delivery, delivering the flood risk capital programme for the Environment Agency, and in contaminated land before that. So made lots of mistakes firsthand, feel that pain, and so heavily invested in how we can use data and technology to improve how we do things. I couldn't put it better than what Golnaz just said. But I think to add to that, if we're using data and technology to help us get the very best outcomes, and machines and data are doing what they do best, what that does is it frees up mental capacity. It frees up the space for humans to do what they do best and to be at our creative best, which we have to be, and to feel psychologically safe to tackle the problems that we currently have no solutions to globally. And the only way we'll do that is to have the creative space and the psychological safety to be at our very best.
Super, Jo. And Pavlina?
Thank you, Trish. So my name is Pavlina. I'm Architecture, Engineering and Construction Practice Lead at Egnyte. Egnyte is an intelligent document management platform that provides secure cloud collaboration and data governance. My background is in construction technology, so I'm very passionate about innovations, digitalization, and purposeful implementation of digital tools. And back to your question, for me, better information management means we can make well-informed decisions on resource use, more efficient planning and analysis for future process improvement and efficiency, but also reliable and standardized data means we can also get the best and the most of the emerging technologies like AI, machine learning, and other technologies that are currently on the market, because we know they need good data in order to produce purposeful results, meaningful results.
Super. So it's all positive drivers for change. And we've got the sustainable outcomes, we've got the carbon capture, improving how we do things, and making things efficient, and the well-informed decisions. And I think that leads me into the next question, which I'll put to yourself, Jo, around the ideals of innovation and ensuring that it's for reasons that make things efficient and not just fashionable. How can better information management support digital innovation? And we mentioned AI, and there's always the digital twin that stands behind that. So you give us some thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. And it'd be great to hear the other panel members' views on this as well. But when you look across other sectors like automotive, they're well ahead of us on this, aren't they? My background is particularly in infrastructure. What they've been doing in the automotive industry for decades is exactly that, is better use of data, better use of technology, even in how, that whole sort of production mindset of having better visibility of data, learning, the sort of Toyota mindset. Yes, it's about data, yes, it's about technology, but unless you have the culture where people can share their mistakes and learn from them, i.e. psychological safety, all of that data and technology is going to have minimal benefit, I believe. So as well as looking within, our own industry, it's how do we look across to others and really learn from them. And actually, I think we can really accelerate our learning by looking across other sectors. And let's face it, where the construction sector is, it dramatically needs to change. It hasn't improved in productivity for decades. And I put that largely at the feet of clients. I think we have to be incentivizing differently, contracting differently, rewarding differently, ensuring differently. But fundamentally, we need to change how the sector and industry operate so that we can make best use of these kind of technologies, because how it is right now, it won't happen.
Yeah. And so I think we're siloed to some extent when we think of the construction sector, and it's all bad news. We get hit on the head that you're just trailing behind agriculture when it comes to innovation and providing the information ecosystem. And I think one thing that the initiative is going to do this time is break down their personas. So we can actually identify where pockets of areas within construction can raise that bar, can bring it up. And there's some real technological advancements out there. And when you say better use of data, that'll walk me straight into a question I've got for Pavlina here. Touching on, you mentioned automotive, I'm thinking pharmaceutical and many other examples out there. But Pavlina, what lessons do you think manufacturers can learn from other industries' digitisation successes?
Yes, so I agree with Joe that construction still has a long way to go in terms of digitalization and standardization. However, we see some very good examples of construction companies that are working towards centralizing their data and standardizing it. So we see many companies using digital tracking to monitor materials, waste, energy use, to meet the increasing demand of sustainable building practices. And we see lots of companies improving collaboration in the cloud and making sure that all the stakeholders have access to the latest information, the latest drawings and documents to improve the transparency on the project. And when it comes to manufacturers, I think if they implement similar systems to connect across departments and locations, like from R&D and production to supply chain, I think this will massively improve the information flow and the quality of the projects, and they can meet their sustainability objectives as well.
Thank you, Pavlina. I've been looking at some of the comments in chat when he's saying that you've got new teams coming in every time, and when it comes to projects, and maybe could introducing data champions throughout the manufacturing sector enhance, the manufacturers seem the single source for data, and we know that's not true. Data is consumed, used. We've got creators of information, we've got absorbers of information. Do you think if we start through maybe this initiative, looking at identifying within certain aspects of personas within construction, having champions, do any of you feel that could enhance and support the data needs of the sector?
Maybe I could dive in on that one, if you mind, Trish. And I think the answer is absolutely yes. So, the creation of the data sits with the person that, owns it, creates it, and we need some responsibility to ensure that it's safe to use, that it's reliable. And I don't think any one person within the delivery of information, and I'm probably talking about a tier one contractor that's got that obligation to hand it over at the end of a project, the onus is not on them to deliver all of that information. It's cascaded right through the supply chain. And really, in my mind, it sits with the person that hands that product over. So whether I'm buying in materials through my supply chain, nuts, bolts, things like this, components, that data should cascade through and, flow, a golden thread, I guess. And there should be champions to help drive more.
If I may add, what you said sounded really interesting about this champion of data, and I do agree with both of you. We talk about sustainability champions, and I just came to my mind this imagining that we are all those custodians of the data, and in our case, empowering everyone go through those materials, because there's so many people go through that supply chains and number of people that increase. But if we think each of us, we are custodian of things, and we pass it over for the next one, and that's becomes that data champions, custodian of champions, which is quite an interesting concept. Very interesting.
Yeah, I know that you're a champion, Golnaz, when it comes to sustainability. Do you want to add to that, Joe?
Well, I was going to agree and cheekily disagree. So, I agree, absolutely. Unless you've got that understanding, there's a great, and unless you've got that understanding built into the organisation, then it's going to be very hard. You're always sort of pushing uphill, aren't you? But then I think it's yes, that can work within an organisation. Is how do you get the data sharing beyond it? Because until we start doing that, we're not going to drive up performance across the industry. And that is a massive block. Even trying to get things like health and safety data shared, sort of pooled securely to drive up standards across the industry. I've tried.
Oh,
It's really hard.
I'm trying to, Joe. And when we get to a question just a bit later on, I've got some exciting news that I've now got a golden carrot
What a
to
tease you are, Trish.
to our industry. Now, Golnaz, like the sustainability champion, how do you think the information management initiative can drive and advance sustainability and innovation within manufacturing?
Just an interesting question. I think, first of all, I wanted to say that we need to be conscious that the built environment has a massive impact on this. So in the UK only, the construction, demolition and excavation has got account 60% of the material use. So we are responsible for this. And we can really significantly advance this whole life carbon approach when we extend the material value by tracking materials, the products and components, incentivizing that sustainable products promote transparency of how we can encourage more sustainable products, pass of the circular economy, making those a standard, establishing those as standard, and having those clear incentive and eco-friendly practices that it goes through all of us. It goes back to that circular design choices, through that data-rich tools and digital and material passport, perhaps, to enable all the designers to be able to access those as early as possible. And also something that I wanted to add, which is very important in my opinion, is about boosting data aggregation of ESG, environmental, social, and governance as well. That's information sometimes is new and is constantly moving, and it's very important that we have this holistic approach of information we pass that, and only with approach of the innovation and support of the manufacturing we can get a hold of that, and to promote this collaboration and knowledge sharing between all involved.
Yeah, I'm all for holistic views. It's so Joe, how do you think, a similar question to Golnaz, but how do you think the information management initiative can prepare the entire construction supply chain for future challenges? And I'm thinking of some of the opportunities out there around, like your sort of area, utilities, and having that holistic view on smart cities, the built and managed environment.
Yes. Again, it's such a rich seam of untapped sort of ability, and I don't see how else we're going to do it and do it well unless we do, have more consistent data, better quality data that's shared better, and then that becomes the means by which we join up, collaborate, and deliver multiple benefits. And when I say we, this is, like you say, it's utilities, it's local authorities, it's anyone who has landowners, agriculture, it's anyone who has responsibility for place. Because as the climate heats, which we see it is doing pretty rapidly, we see the impacts. So, Emma Howard-Boyd recently did a review for Sadiq Khan about the heat impacts and the climate resilience of London. And one of the biggest risks is heating. So at the moment, in this country, we talk a lot about people keeping people warm. We worry about the vulnerability of people being cold. Actually, increasingly, it's the threat of people overheating. And actually, back in 2022, when we had that really hot summer, loads of operations were cancelled because servers in hospitals in London overheated. They couldn't operate their system. So, it's every single bit of the system. We need to think about how it is climate resilient, how we can make it climate resilient. And again, the power of data and join up for doing that well and effectively is immense.
Thank you, Joe. Pavlina, I'm thinking around strategic goals now. And how do you think the information management initiative can support better collaboration that Joe touched upon we all need to work together on this. We've got some serious challenges coming our way. So how do you think it could support better collaboration and align with some of them strategic goals?
Yeah, so the Information Management Initiative promotes supply chain collaboration by enabling seamless real-time information flow from design to operation. It promotes transparency to help align with all stakeholders like manufacturers, suppliers, and contractors. And in order to meet those strategic goals like sustainability, compliance, and efficiency, breaking down silos and enhancing productivity across the board. And I think it is very important for the stakeholders to get together and organize some sort of workshops and share success stories and how they went through the process and what worked, what didn't work. So talking to each other throughout the process, I think it's very important, and sharing those success stories. And I think we need to be more open when we find the solution and we find the process that improves the collaboration and the outcomes of the project.
Thank you, Pavlina. Jamie, you've been all quiet in the corner. I need to get some questions added, you know where. I know you've done some wonderful work previously on with BIM for water and looking at the data templates, etc. And that's a collaborative improvement step. So how do you think procurement teams and other stakeholders that use product data, how can they use it to make safer and more sustainable decisions?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things for manufacturers to think about, and that's certainly where their information comes from. We must appreciate that in many cases, a lot of manufacturers buy in components to build their products, and the information that's associated with them components needs to be drawn from the supply chain. There's perhaps a couple of things that we can think about in doing that, and that could be assessing the supply chain. So simple questions to identify what capabilities they have, if they're ready to pass you data, and think about the importance of the data and, of course, the quality. So maybe keeping things simple to start off with as things mature would be a good step. And I suppose just referencing back to data templates, a mechanism for structuring information to pass it on is definitely a good idea. There's some great standards of which you'll be aware of, Trish, because you've worked on many of them, for putting information sets together and certainly describing performance, construction characteristics of taxonomies of like product, which is really helpful because we know as manufacturers, we all call things different. So at some point, we need some rules to identify exactly what we're talking about, whether that's a brick, a pump, a switch, whatever that might be. So these are really important first steps, making sense of all this.
Super. Thank you, Jamie. You've just introduced my favourite topic when it comes to standards. Like many of you be aware of the methodologies out there for data dictionaries that I've contributed towards and product data templates. And hopefully now I can drive forward to something I touched on earlier, and I'll address this to you shortly, Jo, if that's okay. We have got amazing opportunity. Many of you would have, all have heard about the European initiatives around the Eco Design for Sustainable Products, ESPR, and the new construction product regulation, and that is digital product passports. Now, it's not unique to the construction sector. It was introduced by ESPR. A lot of other industries comment in the chat as well that future challenges will be related to data management, data skills, regulatory compliance and interoperability. And that we've got a real opportunity here now around the digital product passport framework development. And as part of the IMI, I want us to all walk and get a step ahead of that journey. So Jo, how do you think the IMI can enhance manufacturers' ability to demonstrate product safety, compliance and integrity?
Yeah, thanks, Trish. I mean, I think, and I've been reading some of the, comments in the audience discussion as well, and I think there's some really, insightful comments there. And I think it was one of the earlier ones, the more we can, I think it was the Toyota reference, the more we can provide standards and stability and things to, common things to aim at, then an industry skills up as an industry builds up around it and provides what's needed. How can an industry skill up, and provide what's needed if it's not clear and consistent what's needed? So I think, the role of what we're doing here, the Information Management Initiative, it's bold, isn't it? I also see in the comments, things like Mark Farmer's report. How do we make it different this time? I'm afraid as human beings, we tend to go to the sort of, we'll kind of rewrite something, we'll review something. How do we make it different this time? And my hope is, and I don't say hope lightly, I think it's an important word actually, but is that the need is ever greater.
Yeah.
Need is ever greater. If you look at the IPCC report, and I'm going a little bit off topic, but not really, why are we doing any of this? That's the point, isn't it? Why does any of this matter? Because we're living on an unlivable planet. The climate stripe projections of heating by the IPCC shows that, these are temperatures that you can't work outside in, and the impacts that has around the planet. So we haven't done it before. We're trying again because we've got to. And how do we, this community on this call, how do we make this happen this time? But I wonder, Jamie, this is really your field of expertise. What are your thoughts on how the passport, can really drive better join up and better outcomes?
That's quite an interesting question there, Joe. And I'll give an example which perhaps touches your heart, reflecting on your work for the Environment Agency. And as a manufacturer providing products into the water sector, we're very keen to understand traceability of materials that are in contact with things like potable water or the environment. So, having that traceability and having it through our supply chain, because of course it doesn't just apply to us passing on our assembled product. It also applies to our supply chain that we're buying our products in from. So being able to very quickly trace things like materials to ensure compliance, there's huge benefit to that. And not only for, us as a manufacturer, because we'd do it anyway, and use resource to, of course, complete that task, but safety, protection of the public and the environment. And I think, you can't put a price on these sort of...
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm just reading some bits in chat as well. I think language and terminology has got a lot to do. Certainly with a focus on manufacturers, I've got the benefit of being involved in standards. A lot of manufacturers have not had the time, ability, or routine to get involved in the deep, dark depths of some of the construction processes. If you're somebody who's making doors, you're not going to really understand what a Kobe data set is, or even to some extent what BEAMA is. So what does it matter to you? You're planing wood and you're attaching handles to a aforementioned piece of wood. So I think we've got to take it back, and I think that's one of the benefits of looking at this initiative via personas will bring.
Can I add to that, Reg?
Pardon?
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course you can do.
I completely appreciate what you've just said there. There's certain stakeholders in all of this that aren't geared up with the resources, big computer systems, or even computer literate, we could argue. And I think it's putting things into absolute plain language. You don't sell a product without a price. It's a sort of messaging around having it, so easy to understand that you're selling a physical product, but you need to have things with it. So, of course, dimensions of the door frame, for instance, that's quite an easy to understand thing. And life expectancy, fire safety, these sort of things could naturally follow and just become, it's what you do.
Yeah, certainly. And I know I wanted to move a little bit about data transparency and when it comes to compliance and safety, and that's an important part of, like I say, I keep banging the digital product passport drum because it's an opportunity, but it's also a very frightening prospect when you think that a lot of manufacturers place products onto the European market with the proposal for digital product passports. You won't be able to in Europe without a digital product passport. And on a national level, we're going to have to create a system. And the other negative of that is if we don't get with the programme of digital product passports, potentially we could come a counterfeit hotbed. We could actually see things go worse than better. So that's a real driver for change. And just back to you again, Joe, when it comes to transparency, why do you think sharing data among manufacturers, suppliers and regulators is essential for ensuring product safety and compliance within our industry? Is that something that you could...
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the points that Jamie made are really pertinent to that question, aren't they? And back to, again, like I say, some of the comments about interoperability, the standards and making sure that sort of flow of design, manufacturing and installation works really effectively and well, and helps to join up that entire supply chain. Pavlina, I wondered if you wanted to come in on sort of some of the outcomes that can drive.
Yes, absolutely. So what we see when the transparency is improved, we see as a result that, again, we reduce the latencies and delays on project, but we also see throughout this live communication that stakeholders are much more informed on how the project is going, or the production in case of the manufacturers, and every stakeholder throughout the process is more satisfied from the project itself, but also it massively increased the efficiency of the project itself because everyone is up to speed on what's happening, where the delays are coming from, and that helps to also eliminate those risks. In terms of compliance as well, we talk a lot about golden threads and the fact that we have to comply now. It's not just on the wish list. We're all obligated now to keep the data up to date, accessible for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Pavlina. And just a quick note from the chat. I am going to direct this to you, actually, Jamie, because you touched on it earlier. And it's the old analogue and digital way of working to some extent. Do you feel that people are in a data-centric space, or are they still in that document and paper-based environment?
I think documents will always have their place, of course, from a legal or transactional perspective. In the digital space, and I reflect on this, as manufacturers, we've been using product lifecycle management systems for quite a while. We've been doing 3D designs for analysis, so whether that's finite element analysis or computational fluid dynamics, to understand how our products behave. So in terms of being digital, manufacturers have probably been in that space, I'm going to dare say, a little bit longer than construction. Go out and build something. Are we going to be able to get away from a 2D plan drawing? So, the people that actually have to go and deliver there to put this stuff together, maybe there'll be a space where everyone's walking around with iPads. I know that exists now in construction. But, I'd argue that there's always going to be a place for documents. I think others might maybe disagree. I don't know. What's the view from the regulator or from you? I don't know. On that.
We see mixed messages, Jamie, and I think that's something that we need to take on board. Is you have regulations that probably have multiple mentions of digitisation of information, and then they say ensure you've got a manual way to lobby. So I think that there are some real cultural challenges out there. that we need to address when it comes to paper and digital.
And yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot about something that's quite instrumental to certainly thinking about product manufacturers, and that is a documentation that's handed over with the product. So whether that's for regulation and compliance, an operation and maintenance manual, a parts list. So in many cases, and you know it, when you open a box, something that you buy, you get that bit of paper that you take out, install it or do it. So yeah, we are still in this document type base. And when I go to some of our factories, I see the pallets of paper that we use. And yeah, there is, there's an implication on the environment on that. And I see manufacturers, some are, we're using smart things like we're using it within, certainly, within our business, QR codes where we can link that to an online document. So yeah, there's a short shift. And I suppose some of that is based on, what we've said, the challenges around, driving net zero and sustainability. And I was just reverting back to the digital product passport conversation, Trish, and making people aware of what's in a product and where it's come from. And then it got me thinking about food. So a lot of people are interested in where your eggs come from, and textiles, what materials your clothing is made out of, or where that's coming from. Will that cascade into construction? I've said it likely will. If I'm buying in products, I've got ethics to understand that they're coming from a reliable source. We see it on timber, actually, don't we? When it's from sustainable forests. So it's just the whole mindset of having that open information, open data that helps the consumer understand where that product's come from.
Yeah, it's like that cultural change. I think we've got a real shift to address, especially with generational demographics and people's mindset that things need to be kept behind closed doors. If I eat a chocolate bar that's on my desk that I'll enjoy later, then I'm entitled to know what's in that chocolate, what's in that bar. And I think the same goes for what we have around us, what we've got in our homes, and what we build with. It's we've got to really systemic change to how we look at information and how we share it. And Golnaz.
Sorry, I have some technical issue. I'm back now.
Oh, lovely. So when I think about end user engagement, ultimately, as I just mentioned, people live with products, that we manufacture. How do you think the Information Management Initiative can enhance engagement with the end users? There's many different, I think, descriptions of an end user. It could be a resident, it could be an asset owner, it could be somebody that's maintaining it. But how do you think we can, through this initiative, enhance that?
Thank you. I want to connect with what Jamie was saying about how we see destruction and how we can learn from maybe other manufacturing and other sectors. I think in the future, we will see buildings as value-generating assets. And they're not only own the structure, but they're buildings as a material bank. So everything that you have there is to pass it to the next generation, connected to the whole life carbon approach and connected to the materiality. So as the end user needs to have that, and we need to enable them to have that data-rich and transparent approach. So transparent access to the database, enable them to access detailed, accurate data about material used in construction, including the health impact of the end user. We really need to stop using toxic materials and what that health impact of the materials are about the end user, and especially be able to reuse them in the future. That is quite important for the safety and sustainability spaces. Going back to what I said previously, I think it's empower everyone to be the custodians of that rather than the owners. We have these materials, how maintain them as well as possible and how long they last. Obviously, they have all different life cycle and different maintenance, but we have something in hands to pass it over to the next generation. And then again, support them to have that whole life asset engagement, and understand from the end user perspective what they need. That engagement will help us, the manufacturing, to label things in a better way that understand. And then this data decision making should be very clear, it should be traceable. that the end user can make that proactive decision and clear decision about what they need. And I think this digitalization and what Joe was saying, I really liked about speeding up the process to give us enough time to be more creative with our time and what we do. And then this will involve also the end user, which we can connect better with the manufacturing, with the digitalization, because with the sustainability, we are asking always more and more data. Some of the things we really struggle is to be able to embed some of the data from the end of life of the manufacturing, the products, and we call it how that happens, because we don't know, but more transparency, more data and more information we have, that's become easier for the next generation and current users and the future users, I guess.
Thank you, Golnaz. Perfect message. So thank you all for joining us today. As we've heard throughout this session, the information management mandate isn't just about digitisation. It's about creating a foundation of quality, reliable data that flows seamlessly through every stage of the built environment, from design through to decommissioning. And by prioritising trustworthy, structured information, the IMI fosters a connected, integrated built environment that better serves society, the environment and the business landscape. The IMI offers us a real opportunity to drive meaningful change across our industry. It provides the tools we need to transform the way manufacturers, suppliers and end users work together, creating assets that are safer, more sustainable and that perform as intended. By embracing this initiative, we're supporting a more collaborative industry that's fully equipped to meet the challenges of the future. So thank you again to our panellists for their insights and to everybody here for your engagement and questions. Let's keep this momentum going this afternoon in the Information Management Initiative networking area. And together we can turn these ideas into actions that will shape a stronger and hopefully much more resilient industry. So thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.